This moment turned Alexa Eala versus Sabalenka into a war. This moment changed everything between them. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a handshake, it wasn't even a match point. It was a single turning point, subtle, misunderstood, and explosive, that split fans, ignited timelines, and transformed admiration into rivalry. From quiet respect to loud speculation, this moment didn't just create tension, it created sides. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. Alexandra Eala was never supposed to be part of this conversation, at least not yet. She arrived quietly, with no camera crews chasing her footsteps, no expectations heavy enough to bend her shoulders. To most of the tennis world, she was still a promising name, talented, disciplined, respectful, someone to watch later. But later came faster than anyone expected. Match by match, Eala stopped playing like someone grateful just to be there. Her strokes became sharper, her movement calmer, her eyes steady in moments where others blinked. And suddenly, the crowd began to notice something unsettling. She wasn't flinching. Each win felt like a message written without words. She wasn't celebrating wildly, she wasn't provoking anyone. She simply walked back to the baseline and did it again, as if she had always belonged at this level. Fans began whispering. Analysts leaned forward. Social media, always hungry for a new narrative, started asking the question everyone pretends not to ask too early. What if she's not just a story? What if she's a threat? That's when comparisons started. That's when the camera lingered a little longer on her face between points. And that's when her name started appearing next to someone else's. Aryna Sabalenka. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Sabalenka represented power, dominance, raw emotion, a player who crushed opponents and dared the crowd to react. Eala represented composure, patience, and something more dangerous than power: belief. Every underdog needs a mountain to climb, and in the eyes of the tennis world, Sabalenka was that mountain. The narrative built itself, too quickly, too loudly. Could Eala handle that level of intensity? Could she survive that kind of pressure? Or would she break like so many before her? But here's what made people uneasy. Eala didn't look intimidated. She didn't speak recklessly. She didn't challenge anyone directly. Yet the way she played, point after point, felt like a quiet refusal to accept her assigned place. And that silence, that restraint, it scared people more than arrogance ever could. Because confidence without noise doesn't ask for permission. And somewhere in that silence, the seeds of conflict were planted. Aryna Sabalenka doesn't enter tournaments quietly. She arrives like a storm already in motion. Every swing carries weight. Every shout releases pressure. Every win feels less like survival and more like a declaration. She is not subtle, and she has never needed to be. This is her world. Years of fighting doubt, critics, and her own emotions had hardened her. She learned how to turn chaos into fuel, how to turn anger into winners, how to let the crowd feel exactly what she felt. Sabalenka didn't just dominate matches, she dominated space. Opponents felt it across the net, the crowd felt it in their chest, and the tour knew it. So, when conversations began drifting toward a teenager with calm eyes and clean strokes, something shifted. Not in Sabalenka's words, but in the atmosphere. Because dominance is not just about winning, it's about being unquestioned. And suddenly, questions were everywhere. Fans didn't wait for a matchup. They didn't wait for a press conference. They began building a story in real time. One post, one clip, one comment at a time. This would be a real test for Sabalenka. Eala wouldn't be scared. She plays smarter, not louder. None of it came from Sabalenka herself. But narratives don't need permission to spread. For the first time in a long time, Sabalenka's name was being used as a measuring stick, not a final destination. And in elite sports, that's where tension begins. Because champions don't fear opponents. They fear losing control of the story. Sabalenka stayed focused. She kept winning. She kept roaring after points. But fans noticed something subtle. Moments of intensity that felt sharper, reactions that felt heavier. Was it pressure or was it irritation? No one could say for sure, but the stage was set and the tennis world leaned in. Because when two worlds collide, silence and fire don't cancel each other out, they explode. It didn't happen during a match. That's what shocked everyone. There was no handshake gone wrong, no argument at the net, no public confrontation. Instead, it was a moment so small it almost went unnoticed until it didn't. A comment, a clip, a reaction taken out of context and magnified by thousands of voices at once. Suddenly, timelines were flooded with comparisons. Screens split between Eala's calm expressions and Sabalenka's fiery celebrations. Words like fear, arrogance, disrespect began circulating, attached to neither player directly, yet somehow to both. Fans chose sides before either woman ever did. Some framed Eala as the future, the player who didn't need theatrics to win. Others defended Sabalenka fiercely, a champion who earned every ounce of her dominance. And in the middle of it all, truth became secondary. Because online, perception moves faster than reality. One post claimed Sabalenka was bothered. Another insisted Eala was being overhyped. Neither could be proven, but both were believed. That's when the language changed. It stopped being about tennis. It started sounding like war. And once that word entered the conversation, there was no going back. The strangest rivalries don't need contact to cause damage. As the noise grew louder, both players remained publicly composed. No direct shots, no public insults, no statements feeding the fire. But the fire burned anyway. Eala was suddenly under a microscope. Every mistake became proof she wasn't ready. Every win became ammunition for her supporters. Sabalenka faced a different pressure, the burden of expectation, the demand to prove dominance against someone she hadn't even played. That's the cost of imagined battles. You're judged for outcomes that never happened. Fans argued endlessly. Some accused bias, others accused disrespect. And the original reason people loved both players, their talent, was slowly buried beneath emotion. This wasn't just hype anymore. It was tension without resolution. And unresolved tension is the most dangerous kind, because it doesn't fade, it waits. And sometimes that's enough. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Neither Alexa Eala nor Aryna Sabalenka declared war. The rivalry was built by expectation, magnified by emotion, and sustained by imagination. But that doesn't make it meaningless, because perception shapes legacy. Eala learned what it feels like to be discussed as a threat, not a prospect. Sabalenka felt what happens when dominance is no longer taken for granted. Both were changed, not by a match, but by what people believed that match would represent. Maybe this wasn't a war at all. Maybe it was a warning, a reminder of how fast narratives can turn admiration into conflict, how easily fans can weaponize hope, and how athletes often carry stories they never agreed to tell. If these two meet one day, the tension will already be there, written long before the first serve. And when that moment comes, the world will say, "It started years ago, but now you know the truth. It started with belief, with fear, with silence meeting fire." And the question remains, was this rivalry inevitable, or did we create it ourselves? If you enjoyed this deep dive into tennis drama and untold stories, subscribe for more cinematic breakdowns of women's tennis rivalries, emotions, and moments that changed everything.